Prepare to have your mind blown, because in this video I have put together a list of the most mesmerizing and intriguing maps that I could find, and watch until the end because I put the best ones last. On this map showing city lights at night, we can see this really unusual shape when zooming in on Egypt. Most of Egypt consists of uninhabitable desert, but the Nile River runs through the country. Do I want to live close to the Nile and have an unlimited supply of fresh drinking water? Or do I want to live far from the Nile, have no drinking water, and have to eat sand 3 times a day? Most people chose the first option, and today almost everyone in Egypt lives close to the Nile or its delta, and that's the reason for the shape of the city lights. You can really see the importance of the Nile when comparing the population of Egypt to the population of neighboring Libya, a country that is bigger than Egypt but only has a fraction of the population. Next is a 3D map of the world's population density. It might be tempting to think that people are somewhat evenly spread across the world's land masses, but that's just not the case. Look how crowded India is. Most people know that India and China have the biggest populations, but it's still mind-blowing how much activity there is in these places compared to elsewhere. The Philippines is also crowded, and the island of Java in Indonesia too. Africa has a few patches where a lot of people live. I wonder why so many people want to live around that spot but no one wants to live in it. It's because it's a lake there, Lake Victoria. Here is the longest straight line without crossing water. We start in West Africa, then we walk across the Sahara, we just avoid the water walking into Asia. We just avoid the water again at the Caspian Sea, then we walk a bit more before entering China, walking across the whole country before finally reaching the Pacific Ocean. If you try this, you would probably die, but if you actually go out and complete this walk, I will give you a little heart in the comments. I think this next map is really cool. It's the opposite of the last one, the longest straight line without crossing land. We started in Canada, went across the whole world in a completely straight line without touching land once, and then ended up back in Canada. That is really epic, and shout out to the website where I got this map from. You also deserve a heart. Why are there so many people? I just want to get away from it all. And I found the perfect place, Point Nemo, the point in the ocean that is the farthest from land. It is located in the South Pacific Ocean, almost 2,700 kilometers away from the nearest other land. For a sense of scale, if Point Nemo was located in Oslo, the capital of Norway, the nearest land would be in Tunisia in Africa. Since Point Nemo is so remote, the astronauts aboard the International Space Station are sometimes the closest humans to it. I like living far from other people, but there's not enough freedom in the water. Well, look no further, because in green are all the places in the US where no one lives. Western United States has a lot more empty areas than Eastern United States. They didn't include Alaska, but I imagine it will mostly be green. The next map shows the share of the population with no formal education in each country. In other words, it shows the percentage of people who have never attended school, and for the most part it's really good news. Most countries have less than 10%, and no country has a majority of people without formal education. It also seems to go in the right direction. Here we saw the same map looked in 1950. Ivorography from the future here with one more fascinating map so I can make the video longer than 8 minutes and get extra ad revenue. So I can make the video extra good. Here is the top import country of every US state. A lot of states import the most from Canada, mostly in the north, and a lot of states import the most from Mexico, mostly in the south. I said mostly in the south. Quite a few states import the most from China, which honestly isn't that surprising. What is surprising is Idaho importing 50% of their foreign imports from Malaysia. A quick Google search tells me that they import components for their semiconductor industry from Malaysia. Here is a really amazing page where you can see planes currently in the air. The site is a live map where you can see the planes moving across the sky. Europe is almost covered by planes, but it probably has to do with the time of day when I'm recording this. The really cool part is that you can click on the plane to learn more about it. What is this plane doing down there? We can click on it to learn that it's going from Santiago, Chile to Melbourne, Australia. The next is another interactive map that shows the air quality in different parts of the world. The air quality currently shows as good in many places in the world. In some places like China, it's unfortunately not so good, and this is insane. The air quality on the border between Russia and Mongolia is currently very good, but if we go a bit over here, it's hazardous. Here is a map of the world's writing systems. The countries in light blue use the Latin alphabet. In light green we have countries using the Arabic script, and the Cyrillic script also covers a large part of the world. Wow, Asia really has a ton of different writing systems. This is the Mercator projection, the most common map. Turning the 3D globe into a 2D map always causes some distortion. The Mercator projection shows directions accurately, but stretches areas near the poles, making them look much larger than they really are. The Gall-Peters projection shows the correct sizes of countries and continents relative to each other. In other words, it shows countries and continents at their true sizes compared to one another. But like I said before, a 2D map of the 3D globe will always have some distortion, and the Gall-Peters map has to distort shapes in order to keep the sizes correct, so it's not a perfect map. I think this next map is really interesting. It shows the largest trading partner for each country. A lot of countries buy the most goods from one of their neighboring countries, which makes sense. Argentina imports the most from Brazil, Norway imports the most from Sweden, and Libya imports the most from Tunisia. There are also countries with other ties to the nation they import the most from, like Portuguese-speaking Angola, which imports the most from Portugal. And you might have noticed that many countries import a lot from China. What? Why is the Central African Republic importing the most from South Korea? That is so random, but maybe they import cars and phones and stuff, so I guess it makes a little bit of sense. If you don't think the next map is at least a tiny bit interesting, then I don't know what is. In the vast dark blue areas, only 5% of people live. In the white areas, 90% of people live, and in the small red area containing Bangladesh and a small part of India, 5% of people also live. That's insane. The blue areas are for the most part sparsely populated, so it does make sense, but it's still outrageous that just as many people live in the red area as in the blue ones. And at last, the map that I think is the most fascinating of them all is this crazy border situation between Belgium and the Netherlands. This is a small town in Europe split between the Netherlands and Belgium, and it's divided in the most confusing way you can imagine. Many buildings are located in both countries. But how did this situation come to be? It goes back to the Middle Ages, when the land was divided between different wealthy families, and when Belgium declared independence from the Netherlands in the 1800s, no one had the energy or time to resolve the border mess. Nowadays, EU citizens have the right to move freely within the EU, so it's not that much of a problem, and it brings a lot of tourism to the town, so it probably benefits the people.